Good morning and welcome to Eduscope. I remain your anchor, Dr. Iroro Stephen Izu, and today I'm going to begin a, a series, of short quotes, short quotable quotes, for life and political change. I have written quite a number of books, and one of the traditions I try to maintain in my books is that I often open every chapter and sometimes every part of the book with a quotable quote from an authoritative thinker, a leader, a scholar, a prominent citizen, somebody who has made some marks in life or who made some marks, in life. These quotable quotes, they are not just randomly picked. They were consciously picked, for purpose of bringing about some form of consciousness, and change, in people's minds and of course in society at large. Now, so we're going to begin the quotable quotes, by taking the one from my book, Statecraft. Statecraft. This book was written in 2021, and the quotable quote we're going to take here is drawn from, page Roman figure 11, the preliminary pages. It is just a page before the chapter 1. And the quotable quote is taken from one of my favorite, scholars. He was a development economist, and he was a very, very renowned development economist during his lifetime. He, of course, is a Nigerian, and his name is Professor Ojetunde Aboyede. Professor Ojetunde Aboyede. Now, he said, and I quote, "There is no passport to greatness except through hard work, diligence, and unquestionable integrity. There is no passport to greatness except through hard work, diligence, and unquestionable integrity." This quote is self-explanatory. It's telling us, I often use it, when I'm giving speeches, talking to young minds, young graduates, and people who are just beginning their life. There is no passport to greatness. Now we live in a society where it appears that hard work is being downplayed. Discipline is being, set aside. Deviant behavior is being promoted. Behavioral patterns that used to be abominable are becoming acceptable in our contemporary society. To the extent that even religious houses, traditional institutions, celebrate individuals of questionable character rather than celebrating individuals, with unquestionable integrity. So we must go back to the base, according to Professor Ojetunde Aboyede. Professor Ojetunde Aboyede, I never met him, he never taught me, as an individual, but I've read quite a number of his books, his works. One of his works, one of this book, Development Burden and Development Burden and Benefits, was actually written, as a collection of his papers and his essays. It's a very major book in my library. I don't play with this book. So there is no passport to greatness except through hard work, diligence, and through unquestionable integrity. That is Professor Ojetunde Aboyede for you, a man of diligence, a man of hard work, and a man of unquestionable integrity. The second quote we're going to look at, is taken from the chapter 1, of my book. The title of the book is Statecraft. Statecraft. Now, chapter 1 of the book is titled Anatomy of Political Science. Anatomy of Political Science. So the quote there was given by Socrates. Socrates was an ancient Greek thinker, and of course, one of the first, he is really the first thinker we look at, in the field of politics and in several other fields, you know, when it comes to ideation and idealization. He quotes, he quotes, and that the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living. Now, the unexamined life is not worth living. It's just like saying, cogito ergo sum. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. You know, now before it speaks to the fact that before anyone should leap, he should look. You look before you leap, not leap before you look. Before you go into any venture, before you go into any business, before you go into any relationship, you must look before you leap. You must examine situations first. That is what makes us to be wise. You see, the unexamined life is not worth living. A life that is not inquired into, that is not adequately researched into, something that is not adequately researched into, and you go into it, you may meet a very huge, roadblock. So Socrates was right when he said the unexamined life is not worth, living. It's not worth living. Now, another quote we're going to take, from my book, Statecraft, was given by Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was one of the most prominent presidents of America. And he was the one that gave the popular definition of democracy that is used all over the world: the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, Abraham Lincoln, said, and I quote, he said, "It is dangerous to weaken the strong in our attempts in strengthening the weak." It is dangerous to weaken the strong in our attempts, in strengthening the weak. We often talk about bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. We try to advocate for social justice, social equality, and so on and so forth. Now, but of course, in some instances, even nature itself is not fair to everybody. Even nature itself does not give everybody the same thing. What nature gives is actually, equitable, not equal distribution, of resources. You see some societies, they have large scale, natural resource endowments. Some other societies don't have any at all. Some societies, they have, you know, uh, 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 many months of dry season, of sun, of heat. Some other cities, what they experience is snow. Now, you see some cities, they have rocks, hills. They have these things that make their topography to be very unaccessible, and so on and so forth. You see, most of other societies, they are Greenlands, very beautiful scenery, and so on and so forth. So you see some societies, they have black citizens, dark skinned citizens. Some other societies, they have white skinned citizens, and so on and so forth. Now you now see that even by nature, there seems to be inequality. So that was why Abraham Lincoln said that it is dangerous, in our attempt to strengthen the weak, we now weaken the strong. It is dangerous. So whatever policies government is making, even though we want to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, we must understand the fact that what society, what nature, cherishes or has given to us is social equity, not social equality. That was the position of Abraham Lincoln. Now, the next quotation we're going to take is derived from the chapter 3 of my this the same book, statecraft. Chapter 3 of statecraft. Chapter 3 is looking at the relationship between political science and other disciplines, of course, other academic disciplines. And this one was taken from Aristotle. Aristotle. Aristotle said that it's like a follow-up to Abraham Lincoln's position. He said the worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. It's just like what we just explained, not long ago. Is that the worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. You cannot give a child, and his father, the same portion of meat. You cannot give a girl and her mother the same, a young girl and her mother the same, the same gifts, the same dress, and so on and so forth. So the truth is that we must understand this whole, gamut of advocacy for, affirmative action, whether it's in the area of gender equality or, other forms of equality, maybe political equality, economic equality, and so on and so forth. We must understand the fact that, we must not push nature beyond limits to the extent that we'll not be experiencing, abominations, taboos, sacrilege, and so on and so forth. The worst form of inequality is to try to make two unequal things equal, according to, Aristotle. This is a very, 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 very instructive, quotable quotes, this morning. Now, the next quote I'm going to take is from my second book. The second book is African Politics, Political Thinkers, and Developments. It was written in 2022. 2022. And of course, you know what? This book was dedicated to my father-in-law, my late father-in-law. Let me just read dedication. He said this book is dedicated to the memory of Professor Joseph Onwetera Agbamo, an accomplished academic, astute administrator, and former provost of Delta State University Asaba Campus, Delta State, who doggedly stood by the truth but was highly misunderstood, by those who live in darkness. He was my father-in-law, he was my friend, but of course, the deflating antics of death, cut his life short, just a month into my marriage. Now, the first quote we're going to take from this book, is a quote from the enigmatic Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was somebody who became a metaphor for resilience, a metaphor for resilience, a metaphor for doggedness, a metaphor for comeback. A man who fought the struggle, who championed a struggle for his people, who fought for his people, but was imprisoned. When he was imprisoned, naysayers would have been saying that it was good for him, he was doing too much, and so on and so on. So he was in prison for about 27 years. But of course, this same man was released from prison. And the hand of time, was static until the man was released from prison. And when he was released from prison, he became the first black, South African president ever to rule the country. And this man was so shrewd to the extent that when he was asked to come and contest for a second tenure, he said no. He contested, he led for just one tenure, and he handed over to, a Mr. Thabo Mbeki. He laid the groundwork for the success of South Africa today. He was a founding father of South Africa. I often say that we don't have founding fathers in Nigeria. We only had nationalist leaders, and that is one of the problems that we are faced with today, even in this country. We didn't have founding fathers, those who laid their lives for the country, those who made rules and regulations, who made laws, that could live, beyond, could live, beyond, their stay, on earth. We only had nationalist leaders, ethnic leaders, tribal leaders, religious leaders who were so selfish, either to themselves or to their people, and we are in the shambles we find ourselves, today. Nelson Mandela, I quote his statement. He said, "During my lifetime, I have dedicated my life to the struggle of the African people. I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." What a man! What a man. This is Nelson Mandela, for you, a man that cannot be toyed with. Now, the second quote I'm going to take from this book, African Politics, Political Thinkers and Development, was given by John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy is one of my favorite American presidents and one of my favorite, speech makers. You know, John F. Kennedy was the person who said, who told Americans, during his inauguration as American president during his first tenure, he said that think not, Americans, think not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. Think not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. What a patriotic speech. What a patriotic, assertion. How many leaders today, can be so selfless to say, I'm not going to loot the treasury of my office. I'm not going to loot the treasury of my ministry, of my department, of my agency, of this country. I'm going to contribute immensely. Many of the leaders that we have today in positions of authority, they are already rich. They're already very wealthy, from stolen funds, but they still want to steal. Now this man is saying that don't think about what the state can give to you, but what you can give to the state. That's why America is great today. America is not great, because of this idea of say America wants to exploit other countries or conquer other countries and so on and so forth. America is great because we have patriots in America, patriots in America, not traitors. Of course, you can get my other book, Patriots, and Traitors, and read, exhaustively. Now, John F. Kennedy said, he said, "Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate." Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. In life, we must negotiate as individuals, as communities, as local governments, as state government, as federal government, we must negotiate. Life is all about give and take. Negotiation means, trying to find a common ground, on how to solve any problem, whether economic problem, whether political problem, whether social problem, you must negotiate. So, our presidents, when they went to hunger, when they went to the G20 and so on and so forth, he had some meetings. These are negotiation meetings. So he said we should not fear to negotiate, but we should not negotiate, out of fear. We must negotiate from the point, from the angle of strength, not from the angle of weakness. So that is that. There is a quote that I cherish so much. Let's see whether we can end with that. Yes, 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 yes. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an America's civil rights activist, and crusader. He was one of those who carried on with the tradition of Pan Africanist in America and of course in the West. Now fighting for racial equality, racial justice. Trying to destroy the syndrome of racial discrimination, racial injustice, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, that he was assassinated. Now, was assassinated, 1968 or thereabout. Now, John F. Kennedy was also assassinated, because John F. Kennedy was one American president, one American president that gave the civil rights movement, support. Now, and Martin Luther King said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge, and controversy. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Martin Luther King. This speaks to honesty. This speaks to integrity. This speaks to sincerity. This speaks, to self-worth, self-esteem. People easily compromise, these days. People easily compromise. People easily cut corners, and so on and so forth. People don't want to speak to people. I know of somebody, somebody who was supposed to be my leader, my guy, my boss, and they had some issues, in my workplace, and he denied me. These are people that cannot be trusted, that are actually wastes, to you. So thank you very much for giving me your time today. Now, please remember to subscribe, to my YouTube channel, and so that we can get this conversation, going. Till our next edition in this series. Thank you very much. I remain Dr. Iroro Stephen Izu, your uncle.